It's never easy, you know.
Yeah,
Pretty big hole in the family.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Hanging in there. How are you?
We're doing okay.
Wish the country were in a little bit better shape right now.
Be good. Be good. Yeah.
Interesting time to be a history teacher, I imagine.
Yeah. Like anyone who's dealing with kids right now, is, you know, that's a tough spot, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, Bob. Oh, here he comes.
Hello.
Hello, Bob.
How are you, Zach?
I'm doing good. You?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Good. Hi, Aaron. I skipped you. How are you today?
Good. How are you, Zach?
Good. Thanks.
Hi, Aaron.
Hi. How are you all doing?
Good. Happy birthday. I forgot you and I share a birthday.
Oh, that's right. Happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we do.
Is it today?
No, December 30th.
Oh, well, happy belated birthday, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bob, how did you celebrate yours?
Quietly.
Nice.
I had a surprise party last weekend, though. It was pretty
really?
nice. Yeah, it's just a couple of folks. It was nice.
Nice. That's great.
I got a very nice bottle of scotch.
Oh, that's lovely in this, especially during this time.
Indeed. And I haven't opened it yet.
I got new jewelry.
Congratulations.
Thank you. You can see my new bracelet.
Ooh, pretty.
My new ring.
Very pretty. Love that.
Hello, friends. We're all set here, and Mr. George Herndon is with me, representing the Methodist Church fence. So we're all set at your convenience too. Thanks.
Okay.
And Zach, I believe we are expecting Tyler, but you do have a quorum. I've got 6:58 on the clock here, but whenever you're ready.
Yeah, we'll wait until 7.
Are you back?
Excuse me?
Are you back in town? Or are you still?
Oh, we didn't get to go to California because of COVID, and it just was going to be too dangerous both to get there, and then things are so outrageous there right now, and so and then we had a death in the family, and so, my sister's husband died last week, so and we've been very close for the last, well, forever. So that has kind of, you know, taken up the majority of our energy and time, but we are all moving on. And so I'm back. I'm here. I never left.
Well, good to see you. And I'm so sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hello.
All right, it's 7 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. I call our January meeting of the Scottsville Architectural Review Board to order. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. Let's see. So we've got a quorum. Agreed to the agenda. I want to add just a couple items under old business. I think we still have a couple fences in town to follow up about. So under old business D, I'd like to just add fencing follow up. And under new business, I'd like to add ARB communication. By the way, I think we're all communicating well. It has nothing to do with how we're talking to each other. It's more systems and process. So if we can just add those two things, I guess that's what I need. Is everybody good with the agenda then? A motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
I second.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. I suppose if you get 2 seconds, that's as good as a yay. Okay. Where are we here? Minutes from December 3rd meeting. Have you sent those around, Thomas?
I think those went out last week, earlier this week. Let me see. Did anybody else not get them?
I don't remember getting them.
Oh, there must have been a problem on my end. I'm sorry. If you want to save that till next month. They are done, and I'm sorry for not circulating them.
Okay. It's possible they just got lost in the shuffle between this week and last too. But yeah, that's fine. We'll move that to next month. That's fine with me. Okay. So we have 3 COAs to discuss tonight. And we will take the applicants that are here in order. And they're all returning visitors, which is nice to see. Just a reminder to the ARB and our applicants that in the discussion process, I guess what I'd like to do is the property owners to explain their COA, where we are, because I think we have some updates. And then then the ARB can ask questions. ARB will have discussion. And then at that point, I'd like a motion from the board about what you would like to do with the COA. Hello, Tyler.
Hello, sorry.
All right. And so at the end of our discussion, a motion from the board about how you would like to proceed with the COA, reject, ask for revisions, or approve. And so that's the order of business for tonight. Let's start. Who's here? Oh, Hall. Oh, who is Hall?
Me.
Bob's on here twice, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry.
But we have the Scottsville United Methodist Church, David Herndon, in the room with Matt.
I saw that. Yeah. So let's take people in order tonight. Then we'll start with the United Methodist Church, and then we'll take 280 Bird Street, and then the Meeks property.
All right, ahead, sir. Thanks for joining us today.
Yes. And I would like to start off wishing everybody, hopefully everybody had a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And I hope you all have a prosperous New Year. And I'm David Lee Herndon, Chair of the Board of the Trustees of Scottsville United Methodist Church. And behind me, can you see those sections of fence? Fencing? I can bring this forward. All right. And what we have found out this week, Ann, who is who keeps the minutes of our Board of Trustees meeting, she called the social services and found out there's no restriction to height of the fence. The daycare center does not even have to have a fence.
I think we're having an audio problem. Matt, could you move the microphone a little closer to Mr. Herndon? Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt, Mr. Herndon.
But thanks, Thomas.
No problem there.
Yeah. So, did you hear anything that I previously said?
Yeah, I go back the meeting. Go back to before the meeting. We got the fencing, and then from there,
right. Okay.
Wasn't entirely clear.
And so, anyway, prior to this fence issue concerning the daycare, I think the board had been led to believe, yeah, have to have a 48-inch fence on the hill. You know, it's almost like they said, we said, but so at the last meeting, which was last Wednesday, I said, let's call it social services and find out what's facts. So Ann Hamner, who keeps the minutes for our board of trustees, called social services, and there's no requirement of a fence for the daycare center. So I guess the only remaining issue would be on the hill would be a safety issue. So I have done a 2 sections of, so at current the fence is at 48 inches. If whatever the council here tells us to do, whether to take the fence down or modify for a safety issue, I put together the sections of fence that's down there in 8-foot increments. We have 4x4 posts every 8 feet apart, 2 feet in concrete, and they're 8 feet high. So we would, as the board of trustees, we would rather, in the church, we'd rather have the fence, if we can keep it and modify it, at a 42-inch height. So what we would be doing is cutting the fence down to 36 inches, because we would have this about 6 inches over the top rail. And these would be constructed in 8-foot sections, bolted to the 4x4 posts down there, where it could be taken down and painted and so forth and so on. And so I guess we would, as I said, we would cut the fence down to 36. This would be 42 inches to this top. We'd have a 1x4, 1x4, and 1x6 at the bottom. And
You got 2 different types.
yeah, this is one more section of design there. And what I did is I bought 3 different sections to show maybe if you did not go with white, because it kind of jumps out at you. If you went with this is a semi-transparent gray tone, semi-transparent gray brown tone, and a semi-transparent, almost like a whitewash. You know, something that maybe wouldn't jump out at you like the white. Because we talked to the neighbors behind the church, and they said that white might be a little too stark, that they might rather have something more earth tone. But you know, we want to please, so that's why we're here.
And it is helpful to learn that there's not a social services requirement for a certain enclosure or a certain height. So the only decision we have to make is between us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you for putting those in.
Yeah.
Or I open up then questions or discussion with the board.
Well, I apologize for not being able to completely understand what Mr. Herndon has just described. I'm wondering, Zach, if either you or Matt could recap it, briefly.
Sure.
Would you be willing to do that?
Sure. Yes, ma'am.
I got it. I think I'm going to try to do it just for sound, I think, and it also helped me summarize.
Sure.
But it sounds like they want to move in the direction of one of the defense design there, and choosing between those color palettes, a fence that is 42 inches tall,
Right. Yes, sir.
which would then be put in segments and attached to the posts, the vertical posts that are currently sunk in the ground. But then, from there you could take down the other parts and build this around it. But the key thing I picked out there, the design height of 42 inches. Is that right?
That's right. The existing fence would be cut down to 36 inches.
Yes.
The existing posts,
Right.
which is where that top rail where Mr. Herndon has his hand would be affixed to them.
Okay.
And then the remaining 6 inches you're talking about is that top portion of the picket above that.
Yeah, because this would be roughly 4 inches over, and we have it 2 inches off the ground, which would make that height at 42 inches.
And Mr. Herndon, you're talking about keeping the wire that's there and adding this in the paneling in front of it. Is that correct?
I think so, because the wire from Main Street, you would be looking at this. From back up on Jackson Street, you'd be looking at the backside of it. And the wire would be on the backside, but these would be fastened to the 4x4 post in 8-foot increments, sections, bolted to it while they could be taken down, washed, painted, whatever, stained, whatever. Yes.
So what we're looking at from Jackson Street is not this, it's actually the back. This is what Main Street would look at?
Right, yes, sir. This would be the side that you would be looking at the Main Street. This would be the side that you'd be looking at from Jackson Street. Yes.
And you said the wire would still be in place. Did I hear that right?
Yeah. These boards right here would actually be touching the wire. These horizontal boards would actually be touching the wire facing Jackson Street. Yes.
Just out of curiosity, so we have all the information, is there a reason, what's the reason for leaving the wire?
Well, with this, you wouldn't have to. You wouldn't have to. Because the code is on spacing, you state code is you cannot be more than 4 inches. So a child's head could not go through the spacing. This is at 2.5 inches.
Right, it's a small space between.
Right, yeah. So that spacing would be well within the state code.
So if you wanted to remove it, if you wanted to remove the wire mesh, it would.
Well, yeah, from
either way.
Sure. So if you would require that we just take the wire mesh down like that.
I'd like to ask Bob, since he looks on this directly, whether you have just an aesthetic reaction to the wire being on it or not.
It wouldn't be bad to see how it would look, but I understand we want to protect the children. I think these boards, as they look to me here, look safe enough. So I might be prejudiced about, the wire or the fence. So I'm going to probably take the wisdom of the board itself, but I probably would like it removed.
Yes, that would be fine. And I'm gonna, for safety, because I'd rather be fit than I had skimpy. So I would use a 2x4 here, 2x4 here, and a 2x6 at the bottom, because the bottom 2x6 gives it the strength that it won't sag. And a 2x4 is a lot stronger than this 1x4. This I just used it just to bring up to show you, but this would be 2x4, 2x4, 2x6 at the bottom, which would be, this, it would be double this thickness, and then all of these slats are screwed in. They're not nailed; they're actually screwed in.
That sounds solid.
We use screws. Yes.
I appreciate you contacting the neighbors too, asking their view of the color choice too. And so I'm curious about the board's thought on the palette, the color palette.
So I guess if you approve of it being modified, and we would add, because there's a section that's still a rolling hill, we need to add several more sections coming towards Stuart Munson's house. So we finished covering that steep hill, right up to the flat, so there's no steep hill left there. So we would be adding a couple of section of fence coming toward where a gate would have been.
Right.
So will ultimately the fence be completely enclosing an area or no?
No, it would probably be. I did notice on the backside, facing the museum, we need one more section because it doesn't quite go to the bank.
Right.
One more section will take it right to that bank on Jackson Street, and then if we come around this side, facing going towards Stuart Munson's house, because I don't know if I stopped short, but there's still some rolling heel left there that we need to cover. So we're bringing several more sections in at this time, since there's no requirement as far as the daycare.
You're still good. I'm just looking at the map.
Do we put in a gate at all, or do we just leave that part? Since we would have all the steep hill covered, do we need a gate?
Mm. But you are still talking about taking both sides of the fence to the embankment.
Yeah, yes. If you require that, we could take the side that we will put the gate to the bank.
Yeah, and I guess sort of as I walk up Jackson Street, the nice thing about that area up there is that it does feel open. And so if the fence, and I'm thinking like walking up Jackson Street from Valley, if that were to be enclosed, it might feel like it's kind of cutting off the view or the street a little bit. Right. The way it is now is actually kind of nice because it leads into the top space up there. And so it provides kind of a nice flow that makes it feel sort of open and and if it goes to the embankment all the way on that side, I'd be concerned that it would kind of it would feel closed off and make Jackson feel a little more closed off than it does.
Right. So yeah, so if we just come around where we cover that where it was cut short of actually cover that whole thing and just leave that open, I think you're right. It would not feel like it was closed off. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I would think the first question is which form is more appropriate. I don't know that I have an opinion so much about I guess my opinion for the color would be white, but I also hear what neighbors are saying as far as not wanting to impede the view.
Matt, I wonder, could you hold one of those whitewash pickets up closer? I just want to make sure you guys caught, Mr. Herndon did point out that those are a semi-transparent finish.
Right, yeah.
And having seen them in person, you do really get a bit of grain that comes through. And I just want to make sure that you guys all get a chance to see that.
It is. That's a quite semi-transparent. And remember, it's on treated wood, which is, in the self area, it's dark, so it probably does show up a little bit more.
It shows up as a denser color on the camera here than I know it does in person.
Right.
It is much more of a whitewash.
It's a stain. Is it a stain, David?
It's a semi-transparent stain.
I think it has the look of an old-fashioned whitewash.
Right.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, I personally, if we're just talking about colors, I see the remark about the starkness of the bright white, and I think, I think I probably lean towards the whitewash just because I think it's a little less. It is a little less stark, and yet somehow I feel like a picket fence in another color there's a disconnect there for me, because a picket fence is usually white or sort of white looking. So that's just where I come in on this one, you know, depending on how you all feel about the pickets overall and the modification that's being proposed.
Yeah, and I suppose that we should sort of, I guess, maybe make sure we're all in consensus there. How do we feel about a fence on this site in this location, given the design that we've been given and the church's
right
need?
You know, actually, the ideal fence is a white wrought-on fence because you tend to look through it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's black. You just tend to kind of look right through that. You know, if it were a black wrought-on fence, they don't just kind of jump out at you, kind of look through it. And I just did it in those earth tones, like a gray and a brown, and a whitewash. So it kind of gives you the three different dimensions of colors.
Are there names that you know for the patterns at the top?
Now, this one is one in your brochure, which is the second to the end.
I noticed that the fence guidelines that we have.
I don't know, Barbara would probably be the one to tell us the name for that.
Our guidelines do have the half hexagon kind of one as an example of a simple picket design. The teardrop shaped one I'm not as familiar with.
No. I was just at home one day just playing with designs and the people that I don't know if you hold that where they can see that.
This is one you built recently?
That's one that I built recently. They just show part of it. You see that in detail at all?
It doesn't really show because the pickets are so close together.
Right.
But this is a long run of farm fence that you did on Route 6 east of town.
Right.
Yeah. At the Kuhar property.
Yeah. And I was just playing around at home and just come up with this design, and they liked it. So that's what we went with.
Do you recall how much frontage on Route 6 that was? How many feet of fence you did?
It would be as much as this.
Pretty long run.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I think it was over 200.
Okay. And we might be at 180 on this one, I think.
They're very, very close because
yeah.
of what we measured. Of course, now that fence was 1 inch apart. This is two and a half inches.
Oh, I see. Yeah, in this photo, it's very tight spacing on the pickets.
Yeah, that's base it on that.
It almost makes it look like a solid fence.
It does. I just saw that today, actually. Is it around a pool?
No, she has a garden there that's one of the, everything is natural. I mean, so she grows her own vegetables, all that stuff there.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, turn it back to the board here, just the fit of the fence design in general. If this is a direction we feel comfortable going in, and if we can then talk about the design, but I'd like to hear from you all about this, especially since we rejected the COA initially, now of a revision.
I think if the objective is about safety and the church is clearly making an effort to implement an appropriate design, I would say it's okay to move forward with it. It's just about form and color.
Tyler?
Yeah, I agree with that.
I agree with that.
And
I prefer white.
Over the whitewash?
Yes. Picket fences typically are white, and I don't think we should make an exception.
So that means it'll have to be painted when it starts to peel, right?
Right.
With stain is a little different, but okay. So it finishes, if it's any of these, obviously the teardrop is a taller finish, but the absolute finished height is, again,
42 inches.
42?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 42 inches.
Which would be,
Okay.
Which would be 6 inches shorter than this.
Than that, okay. So it stays within our guidelines.
This is 48, so that would be roughly about right there.
Oh, so it would be shorter than it appears on the map.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm in agreement. This is a tough one, David. You know, again, just the historic nature of the street, the view of the folks that live along Jackson to look down at the water.
Right.
So whatever it is, you know, I would trust that the Methodist Church would obviously keep it up and keep it nice looking, but that is such a prominent spot view, you know, both from the residents on Jackson and from looking up from Main Street. So I'm in agreement with the rest of the board that for safety purposes, it's okay. And so that's, you know, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, thanks everyone. I think this work to match our guidelines and to sort of meet the needs of the church feel comfortable to me. I appreciate it's at 42 inches. I appreciate your willingness to sort of make the current or sort of fit this in with the current posts that are there now. I do think I would prefer that the chicken wire not be used, that the wire not be used. And I personally, I prefer the stain myself, in part in response to Barbara's comment about maintenance, that a stain might weather a little bit better. And I do hear the residents, and I know the white will get dirty. White doesn't stay white very long, right. But it's a lot of fencing. And so it would be right. And so for me, I feel that the stain would be a better way to move forward.
Now, you know what? I could put a second coat of that whitewash on this and we see, because they actually recommend doing one coat, waiting a couple days or so, doing a second coat, which would definitely show more white in it. Yeah,
give you a little more color.
Yeah, because that first coat penetrates in and you're covering that darker wood, so that second coat of that whitewash stain would show more of the white. So if you want me to, I would be more than glad to put a second coat on this and then let you see that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I could live with that.
Yeah. Yeah, and are we in agreement to the 46-inch height? Now, the fence itself will be 40 because I'll be bringing it off the ground about 2 inches.
Understood.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, but the full height from ground level will be 42 inches. I understand the fence will be about 2 inches off the porch, off the window. But the final height would be at 42 inches.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm hearing, good. So I'm hearing a stain white. I'm hearing 42 inches. Do we have a consensus that we prefer the hex top? The boxy top, the hex top? Okay. So I think that's the way to go. And Matt, thank you for pointing that out, since that we do have pictures of that now in our guidelines. So that's very helpful. Yeah. I think the hex top is the way to go there. I think that will fit nicely. And then in terms of completing the fence, no,
you froze, Mac.
Such a smart pose, though.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, I froze it?
Sort of like a thinker.
There you are.
We lost you after the
I'm back.
At the top.
Back. At the top? Oh, the hex top. Oh yeah. And then in terms of finishing the fence, I know you want to go to the embankment, and that sounds like the right thing to do on the east side. I would prefer that it remain open on the west side, so that as you come up Jackson from Valley, there's just sort of an open way into that plateau.
Right, that's right.
And no wire.
I think this style goes better with the town of Scottsville.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Because it's actually on your sheet here.
Yes.
And I've seen other fences in the town like this. So yeah.
Okay. So to recap, so we're looking at so the COA, Matt, just make sure that's all on the COA. So we've got it there.
Yes.
We're going to confirm the hex top. We're committing to 42 inches, white stain, unenclosed on the west side. So the part that's open on the west side will remain open, and no wire.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
2 coats of white stain, though, right?
Right. That's right. I will.
Correct.
So the white is more dominant.
Prominent.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Thanks, Bob.
We aim to see it to we will follow all of the guidelines. Right now, so we need to apply for a permit now. Is that right? I think I have it.
I can jot this in. I've got these permit notes, and we can do you a cover sheet. But I think the board has the details necessary to vote on the motion.
Right. Okay.
Yes. So we need a motion. I need a motion.
I'd like to approve the fence at the Methodist church in between Jackson Street and Main Street with the revision of the picket fence that we discussed using the hex top, 42 inches with the 2 coats of whitewash stain.
I second that.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? All right. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate you coming to join us tonight for all of your work.
And I certainly thank the board. Appreciate it. And as I said, hope you'll have a blessed evening, everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Wow.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, you're all welcome.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Unsworth, are you still there? Hello, welcome back.
Oh, wow. You weren't frozen.
That picture, by the way, that avatar of you is like it's like a zoom action shot, you know?
It's a very convincing freeze frame.
Yeah, sometimes I just put that up for meetings and go away.
Yeah, you would have fooled me. You would have fooled me. If you were one of my students, I'd be like, look at this kid paying attention. Okay.
Really wrapped.
Yeah.
So Zach, do you want me to reprise the project here?
Yeah, sure, go for it. We've seen some work happening. It looks good so far.
Yeah, it looks great.
So this is 280 Bird Street, George and Lucinda's place. And our move-in date is February 15th. So there's a lot happening right now. Sorry if you can't get a painter. I think we have them all. But we have 3 items to discuss with you tonight. Repainting the ceiling on the front porch, outdoor lighting, and a stovepipe on the carriage house. So let me just, 1, 2, 3 there. Repainting the ceiling on the front porch. It's now brown. That matches the shutters and woodwork generally on the house, which we have just painted the garage door, a matching brown. But we don't really like that for the porch ceiling, and we'd rather something more traditional. So we're proposing Benjamin Moore Palladian Blue, which is a traditional porch.
Do we have documents showing this?
I sent Matt links to everything. Matt, back.
I just updated that email, so it's got a little narrative and product links for all of those.
Okay. So that's a Palladian blue is a sky blue. It's a southern porch ceiling color.
Yeah, it's one of the sort of, you know, half a dozen to a dozen standard porch ceiling colors.
Paint.
Resident design expert, Barbara.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out which collection it's from. You don't know the answer to that, do you? I know it's Benjamin Moore, but do you know if it's the historic collection? Is it the...
Just a sec.
And the Benjamin Moore Palladian.
It starts HC, so does that mean historic?
Historic color. Okay. No, I'm pretty familiar. I just don't.
Let me just find the link and drop it in the chat.
Oh, I can also screen share this email if that's helpful.
I got it.
Okay.
HC 144 and Benjamin Moore and Palladian Blue. But I will warn you that if you have white light shifting turned off on your, or turned on your computer, you may see a
Okay. Palladian.
Berry blue, blue of sky, touch of mother pearl.
It's a lovely color.
Why am I not seeing it? Have you put it on the screen, or are you just talking about it in the link?
I put a link in the chat, which will take
you
to the sample.
Okay. All
Or
right.
Barbara, you can just type in HC 144 Benjamin Moore.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I just didn't. I'm working off two different. Okay, here we go. Okay. All right, now I see it. So it's a bit of a greenish blue.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to read color on these things. Okay.
It's not as green as it looks on my laptop right now.
Right. I'm not at all surprised. No, I think that whole family, honestly, I'm not going to nitpick on this, because I think in that whole range of very light blue to mid blue, as long as it doesn't get too dark, you know, it's all in that same kind of zone. And so I have no quarrel with that or qualm about that. What about the rest of you?
I agree. Move on.
Yeah, it's good to me.
Yeah, I think it looks good with the existing sort of beige-ish brick color.
That sand brick, right?
Yeah.
I agree.
That's it. And we're also going to put this antique light fixture on the front porch. I just dropped a link in the chat.
Okay.
For that, that's
Matt, can you share that?
I'm sorry?
Can you screen share that fixture?
Is that the star pendant?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a
interesting.
It's actually the first one, Matt.
The first link.
Yeah.
This is, we've done a lot of period lighting on the first floor of the house, inside.
It's
And
sort of it's sort of a riff on a Moravian star, isn't it? I've never seen one with those sort of finished bolts. It's interesting.
a Moravian star with finials.
Yes, with finials.
Right. Yeah.
I think it's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's a cool piece.
Well,
I really like it a lot.
we're gonna have you all over to see all the stuff that's downstairs. But all this antique lighting comes from a place in Boston, and we are now their best friend.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the front porch piece, the
Okay.
ceiling lighting and that light. You want to stop and deal with that, or do you want me to go on to the next?
I think we're good. I mean, when we look at exterior light, I'm just looking at the guidelines here. The things that we're most concerned with for this one, especially because of its placement, is really the kind of light bulb that's going to go inside. So as long as you don't have anything garish blasting into the street, we should be good with the design of the fixture.
Okay.
Okay.
Just as long as it points directly across the street, it'll be okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, we'll make sure. So then the next item is just outdoor lighting in general.
Mm-hmm.
And some of this has been installed. Basically, we just in the last week put a link in the chat there. We had this basic style of light installed over the back door, over the workshop door, and there will be, I think the link I sent you is for the pier mounted version, which will go at the end of the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
These are all sort of a hammered copper, dark skies friendly light fixtures, and they all match. They give I would say a good amount of illumination without throwing any up to speak of.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then we were thinking of out front where there's currently a kind of wooden post with a vaguely colonial light fixture. We were thinking of a new just black metal post with a light on top of it, which could either be, that same fixture, or we had looked at this. Neither of these that I just put in the chat, neither of these have been installed yet.
So the Moravian star looked to be a black finish, am I right? Or was it bronze?
I believe it's black.
Yeah.
Black, and this is black.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that you're using on the other two that you showed us with the downward pendant, those are more bronze, am I right?
Yeah, more like a
okay
color.
So yeah, that's my only, just in terms of consistency, going from the black to the bronze.
Yep.
But if they're not really visible simultaneously, I don't see a real issue there.
I don't think that the dark skies friendly outdoors lights that we have elsewhere are available in a different finish.
Okay.
So I think it is a choice.
But this is in the front, along with the Moravian star. So you'd see those at the same time.
Yes.
Correct?
Right.
Right. And the others are to the side. They're on the garage.
Around the side, you would see them from the driveway.
Yeah. Okay. I'm good with that.
Okay.
That's good.
And then the third piece is when we bought the house, it had a wood cook stove in the kitchen, along with an electric stove. And we're moving the wood stove to the garage, which now no longer floods.
Bonus.
And we'll be putting it in the back corner of that downstairs garage, and the stovepipe will go up through the workshop and out the top of the metal roof that's on top. So there will be a bit of stovepipe. It's got to go up, and my understanding of the regulations is it has to go 2 feet over the peak of the roof. So there will be probably 4 feet of stovepipe visible, probably only really from the driveway side. And then on top, there'll be a cap. And so there's a couple of options for caps. One is basically, yeah, the conical style, and the other is kind of like a wind vane in that it turns, so you don't get downdraft into the stovepipe from oncoming wind. It's always drafting downwind. Both of those, we do these in probably a black pipe and either a black or a copper top. And I put a screen on these, I don't spark arresting sort of screen in either case could be used.
So you're actually reusing the stovepipe, the original stovepipe. Is that what I heard?
No, the original stove was vented into a chimney in the kitchen.
Okay.
So there was no stovepipe. So
okay.
We're reusing the original stove, but we'll be adding stovepipe and a top.
Sure. Okay. Anybody else have some input? I don't really have an informed opinion about this.
I'm just thinking about other similar stovepipes or fixtures around town, and I feel like this second image you showed here is more consistent with some of the other things that are up in town. But that's my memory of it. It feels like that sort of fits.
I think as long as the stovepipe or the stovepipe is the black stovepipe and, well installed and obviously, to code, I think either caps are fine. Do you have copper gutters? Am I remembering that correctly? Okay.
Yeah,
so,
copper gutters and copper tops on the railing posts on the deck that just went in.
Okay. Uh-huh. So I guess I don't, I think it would be fine to put a copper vent. I also think that, a black one might look nicer. And I definitely would kind of err on the side of the one that spins so you don't get downdraft, because that sounds great.
Yeah. I'd favor black just to make it as invisible as possible, I think.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a good approach.
Yeah.
And it would be on the uphill side of that roof line, is that right?
Yeah, it'd be on the driveway side. So not on the street side.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, me too.
Make a motion to approve all said enhancements for 280 Birch Street.
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? None. Thank you all. Thank you for that presentation. I really do appreciate the work you're doing. It looks great. I've enjoyed on my COVID walks, seeing the updates, so it looks good.
We can't wait. We really can't wait. We can't wait to have you over. Yeah.
The addition is looking fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Thank you. So just carry on. There's no change to the paperwork. I'll attach the samples here to the previous file and go right ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah.
All right. So our third applicant is not here, but it looks like we have a letter.
That's right. I received this in response to the discussion last month. I haven't had any in-person conversation At last month's meeting, we talked about a request for elevation drawings and discussed the slopes of the roof angles. So this is all that I have moving forward on that, but maybe there's other discussion or meetings that happened that I wasn't at.
No, that was it.
Not at all. I mean,
I haven't seen the letter.
what'd you say, Bob?
I said I haven't seen the letter.
Oh, okay.
I haven't either.
It was
Either.
attached in Matt's email today.
Yeah, the attachment doesn't work for me for some reason.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't work for me either.
Matt, do you want to just put it up in screen share real quick and we can just read it on screen?
That's a fine.
I'm going to attach it to our minutes here as record anyway.
Yeah, that's more efficient than my reading it. Okay, coming right up.
Bob, are you able to see?
I have been able. I don't see anything now.
Just a moment.
It's coming up.
Okay, great.
I've read it, so I'm going to go refill my tea.
I'd like some tea.
Can't transfer those kinds of files yet.
I mean, okay. So the way we left it, I feel like the way we left it was we wanted to see drawings to see how it would fit on the building.
Yeah, I think I'd just like to speak to that because that was I think that was my request or my initiative. The request was really to see an elevation drawing so that we could make an informed decision about the addition and the slope that it had, whether it matched the slope or not.
Right.
I do have a couple of other concerns after the conversation of the slope, but
Straight on the porch roof basically hides the main roof. Hey, let me just ask if you all are reading this one sentence the same way that I am. Can you move that back down? Thank you. When viewed straight on, the porch roof basically hides the main roof.
so I've read
Is
this.
he talking about the proposed, which is the?
Oh, I think what he's talking about is the porch roof is 412 and the main roof of the house is 612.
Uh-huh.
However, I've read this several times because it's very pointed, just to get a sense of where he's coming from. And I look back at Zach and I's photograph, and I'm curious if that statement is true, because in our photograph, it actually shows that they're parallel, but it is a perspectival photograph, so it may or may not be true. But what he's saying is that the front porch slope is covering the larger house roof slope because of the pitch, and that he's making an argument that there are a variety of pitches and slopes in in architecture around Scottsville.
Okay, so I found that paraphrased comment rather bizarre. Oh, okay. All right, I just finished. Well, no, I haven't finished reading it then. So let's keep going here. Okay. Oh. Okay, yeah, well, this is a lengthy letter. I wish I had read it. Sorry, guys, I'm holding you up.
That's okay.
I haven't read it either.
Okay, in all honesty, just to talk about the rail, I don't remember that part of the conversation last time. Does Thomas, do you have your notes written
Let
there?
me email you guys
Meeting
those.
minutes?
That was something that was discussed in the conversation, yeah.
Yeah, I remember discussing the rail. I don't remember it being the sticking point. As I recall,
I thought it was a side entrance.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so here's the picture of what is there, and that was going to be retained as far as we understand by him.
No, that is not currently there, but it is an example of something that he has. You know, these are all examples, I think, of things in other places that he would be using.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. This is one of the adjacent houses.
Uh-huh. Okay. I guess, I'm sorry to be so dense, but he was proposing that when he puts the steps in, that this is the kind of rail that he would be installing to be consistent. And we took issue that maybe that wasn't the best rail for that area. Is that right? I'm sorry, I don't remember.
I remember he was saying it was sort of he was throwing it out there as a potential, and
right.
You know, the response was, it might have been for me or the rest of the board, but was that that was of concern.
Yeah, I to be honest, and I just sent out my minutes from last time, but I didn't come up in my notes. I do remember it being discussed, but it was not a lengthy enough conversation that it, you know, warranted a sentence in the condensed version of the
I was just trying to take out the smaller issues before we addressed the roof issue.
No, I think it was probably because there was a picture, we discussed it, you know, something along those lines.
Okay.
All right. Well, yeah, so let's just, I mean, the roof issue seems to be the big thing. So Matt, can you pull up the picture of the front of the house, just so I have a sense of where we are here? Okay. I also want to be clear that I'm talking about the right building, because Aaron and I were unsure when we were doing our inventory which of the properties this one was addressing. Is there anything to the left of this building? What's to the left of this home?
Oh, we should look at it. Yeah.
There we go.
So this one's got the addresses. Just making sure about that. So there's the three in the row. So yeah, this is the last in the line.
Okay.
And there's nothing.
Oh.
There's nothing going down the hill from it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
That's helpful. Are you able to show Street View on there, Matt?
No, the Google truck didn't go all the way down the street.
Okay. Okay, that's really helpful because the concern was whether there was enough space.
I was just going to say, I do remember that was something that came up, the spacing between buildings.
So along those lines, I'm just going to kind of piggyback on you, Zach. If that is the last of the buildings, yeah, then it's very apparent. Oh, I see what he's talking about, the roof pitch. Okay. Then it's very, like, the porch would be very apparent from the street. It would be, you would be able to see it very easily.
Coming up the hill, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think we'd want, we'd want the pitch of that addition roof to be similar to what's already there. I don't understand the 412. What's this 412, 612 thing? What does that mean?
It's rise over run. So
Okay.
over 12 inches, it rises 4 inches, or over 12 inches, it rises 6 inches.
Got it. Well, the difference between the porch roof and the actual roof seems very slight. I mean, it's not.
I can barely tell.
Visible.
Well, so the existing, now I understand what he meant about the porch roof from the street looking straight on.
Right.
Is basic. It is the same. It does mirror the main house
Correct.
pitch, does it not? And so the
Yes.
issue in question is the addition of this little side entry and the angle of that roof.
Right.
And what Aaron and I both felt was that so often in these scenarios, you can really tell when there hasn't been an architect designed addition, because you get these off angle, I don't know the architectural terms, I'm sorry, but you get these off angle roof lines, and it just looks, it just doesn't look consistent. It doesn't look intentional. It doesn't look designed. And so his argument, this is what I'm trying to reconstruct in my head, his argument had to do with the grade of the hill, did it not?
That's correct.
Yeah.
His concern was that if he made it a shallower slope to match the roof line, that it would extend the porch too far off of the side of the building. And he was requesting the steeper slope in order to snug the porch up to, I think he said 6 feet wide.
Yes.
6 feet deep.
Right, 6 feet deep. Yeah.
Okay.
6 feet off of the side of the building.
Yeah.
And I think it is a tight lot. He can only build so far out on his property line. Okay, this helps. That's a flatter angle.
So the pitch of this is 412, and the pitch of the existing porch is 412.
No, I thought that was 612.
No, that's the house, I think. Wait, hold on. The
house and the porch are the same.
House and the porch are both 612.
Oh yes, sorry. Yes. Yeah. You're right.
And then his claim is that it is common for a porch roof to have a shallower slope than the roof of the building, so that if it were visible at all, which is a separate claim, then it's okay to have a shallower slope here.
I think that is the case. Actually, Matt, could you go back to that street view of 280 that you had up a minute ago? If you still got that window open. It's a different kind of roof line, sort of turned 90 degrees. But yeah, there's a steep peak and a much flatter roof.
Right, because you need to make space for an attic or something up here, and here you have closer to the flatter surface.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway.
I mean, I guess our request, and Aaron, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the request for an elevation drawing was just so that we could see what this porch would look like as an addition on the building.
Yeah.
Yes, it was so that we could make an informed decision.
Right. So I feel like we should still ask for that.
But you can kind of, I mean, you can get the gist of it from those photos pretty easily, like, and the hand drawings, like that we're just the pencil drawings.
I definitely think you can get the gist of it, and I don't see anything wrong with it now that we know, that the context of the slope of the existing roofs are 612. Mm-hmm. However, typically when you do an addition, you not only show the addition in a drawing, but you also show the context, which would be the house in this case. And the resistance to doing that is a little strange, but I don't, you know, I do think that we have the information. We just don't have the visual information that was requested. And I think it's just up to us whether we need that to make a decision or not.
Well, do we have stuff in terms of materials? Like, what's the roof going to be? Is he going to be standing seam?
Matt, did he give that at all?
I don't have any narrative, and
because that's what's on the existing house, which I would hope is being copied.
Right.
I don't have any narrative on that, and it doesn't say, and I don't remember a material statement in talking.
I think, you know, for me, and I'm not sure, I get that, like, it would be good to see like the full drawing. But I don't know what we would necessarily, how much added value we would get from it at this point, given the clarification that we've received and what we have here. However, I do think we should have material samples before we approve something.
I do too. And remember the house down below on Warren, that was an issue, was it not, Matt, in terms of was it the slope of the steps or something? There was a redesign because it didn't meet code, that the steps would have had to have been from the porch to severe. So it's just one of those things that I feel like you can be kind of casual and cavalier about it because there are different examples around town. But this is a gentleman who does a lot of historic restorations and additions and that kind of thing. So it certainly isn't unfamiliar territory for him to provide a fuller picture, and kind of the need for us to see it sort of fleshed out. So I'm not objecting. It's unfortunate that there's this sort of, response to our questions and the requirements of the COA. We're not trying to be obstructionistic. We just want to know what we're looking at. And there have been issues in the past, window replacement, et cetera, that Tyler and I can speak to along Jefferson Street. We just want to know that there's going to be adherence, I guess, is the best way to kind of frame that. So it wasn't a bizarre request. It's what the COA asks for, are elevations. And so that's my assessment at this point. There have obviously been a lot of issues along the way with completion of his properties.
Hey, Matt, if you go Google Earth on Valley Street at his property, that's the first thing that comes into town on the right-hand side if you're going south. The little mint green one.
Yep. About that.
So I think I'd like to know, I bet that roof is probably a 612 and this porch is probably a 412. And it looks like the design is
right.
The design is like what he has penciled in is like the exact same thing that's on this property.
Right.
So I bet it's going to look just like that.
Yeah. Well, and that would give us some clarity. You're right.
Right.
The building is steeper and this is a little bit flatter. Yeah.
I would only say though that you're looking at it straight on, that's the way you see it. In this scenario, you're looking at it when you're on the street and you're looking at the property, that difference in slope is more pronounced. Would you agree, Erin?
Yeah. Because you see the profile as opposed to
Yeah. And so I see that, you know, he's declaring in effect that he's already set the precedent. So that's a good catch, Tyler. But I don't think that means that that's carte blanche to do that, depending on what you're going to see from the street.
No, I'm just saying that, yeah, it's just the same scenario that he proposed.
Yeah, exactly.
If we wanted more visuals, here's a visual that everyone looks at every single day.
But that is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that is what it is. That's a good catch.
I would like to say for the record, though, that first house that you're just showing, he did an incredible job. That house was totally falling apart, and I give him credit. He did a nice job.
The difference in some of these projects, for some have been completed beautifully and others have not.
Right.
I agree. I totally agree.
That's really the point here, I think.
Matt, that next little house down from this green one, does that have a side porch on the far side of it? For some reason, I'm thinking one of these ones did. Oh, maybe it's that little back porch I was thinking of. No, I thought one of the other ones that had the same roof line as the house on Harrison Street that we're looking at, the next one down. I thought this one or maybe the next one had a little side porch, but I guess I'm wrong.
All right, so I think we've got some examples here, but we got an inventory to look at this evening, so I want us to make a decision here about what we'd like.
I agree with you, Zach, that we can't approve until we get materials.
Okay, but is that it? Like, do we feel like we have enough? In other words, do we want the elevation drawings, or do we feel like the materials will be adequate to move forward with this?
I'm okay with moving forward and just requesting materials.
Okay.
I do wonder about the sort of professional precedents this sets for moving forward with Mr. Meeks, but I don't think, I mean, that's not the question you were asking, and I don't think that saying no, you can't move forward until you have that elevation necessarily corrects that precedence.
Mm.
So.
And when you all ask for materials, could you just specify you're asking for roofing material? Are you asking for flooring, railings? I mean, what other stuff would you like?
Yeah, I think all the stuff.
Are there railings on those plans? I don't think there is a railing. I'm sorry. I think I misspoke there.
No, he has railing.
Oh, he did? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and it will help me now that we've identified a similar one in the other place to ask, in what ways is it the same or different than this other one? And that'll help get the details.
Yeah.
Right. And I just want to finally add that whole row of those little, houses along Harrison there, that in terms of, as he's working on each one and making changes, that we bear in mind the need for some consistency, since they are basically all the same cottage. So if he's adding other porches, et cetera, that it's just that I think consistency is something that is of relevance here. So
right.
That's all.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think you should let him know, I think we should respond to this letter a little bit. I think you should let him know that what we were looking for is, to make clarity, to make sure that we were making an informed decision. I don't think anyone was doubting the roof lines are, in different homes or whatever around town. So I think it would be good to clarify that with him. And also, to let him know that we gained some more clarity just around, it sounds like, roof lines through this conversation this evening that helped inform this decision too. So
sure,
that'd be good for him to hear. I need to belabor the point, but.
And the final legal point that I'd make is the standard that we're using is the local ordinance and the guidelines published by this board. So reference to the more general federal document isn't relevant, that the local rules are more specific and guide our decisions, and the federal manual does not.
Right. Yeah. All right. I think I'm unstable. Am I unstable?
Not very stable.
All right. So let's move on to new business. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I added an item under new business, didn't I? Communication.
Wait a second. I also don't want to get into a pattern of him just communicating on paper through Matt. Like the precedent, like we ask our applicants to come and discuss their projects with the ARB. Like I don't want a list of materials, and if we have questions about them, like Matt, it's not your responsibility to answer those questions. It's the applicant's responsibility. So he needs to be told that he needs to come back and present this rather than just working the application through the town. I don't think that's fair to the town, nor is it fair to the board.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Also, I mean, in the past, I think we've required people to be in attendance for us to respond. Is that correct?
I think so.
So I think we should hold him to that also.
Yeah. I like
He's
that.
also been on the board for some years, so he knows how it all works.
Mm-hmm.
So do we ask him to come in order to respond to this letter too without having Matt follow through, or do we just have Matt follow through and ask him to come to the next meeting to present the materials?
I think we ask him to come to our February meeting with materials, and then we can finalize the COA. We have this reference material too that we can go back to if we want.
I agree.
Absolutely. And the attendance is expected because I can't answer with certainty on his behalf. And
Right.
There's no guarantee of a decision if the questions aren't answered. And he's not owed a decision in his absence.
Yeah, I think that's always been our approach from a staff point of view is you know, we have a hard time telling people they're required to attend a meeting. They're welcome to submit something. If they're unable to attend, they should expect to not be surprised if there are questions that come back to them and not an approval. But, you know, you guys have always been very clear up front that, you know, approval should not be expected within the same month that an application is submitted. So that helps.
Yep, thanks. Let's do that. All right, new business. I won't be here long because I do want to get to the inventory, but it's based on our experiences here and mostly Bob's experience. Bob, I'm going to put you on the spot for a minute. With our email server, which is old, we've like had some trouble with communication, and because you all sort of work with your private email addresses. Everyone does who serves as a volunteer capacity on one of our committees. And so Bob now is on our official system, and it made me just think about sort of process for our state boards and commissions, which is the ARB and the Planning Commission, and brought it up to council last time, their feelings about getting people on our boards and commissions onto our formal email server. Primarily, so that we can be sure that everyone's getting emails and it's coming through one system, and 2, for our own accountability as a town, that there is a better paper trail and accountability on our side for members of our state appointed boards and commissions. And so there is a support from the council to get you all town email addresses on our Bluehost server. I think the idea would be they'd be like ARB1, ARB2, or something like that. You could still forward them to your personal emails, but Matt or Tom?
Well, we might actually not ask that we not do that. I think if the purpose of it in part is that we are trying to create better documentation and improve our exposure to that FOIA liability. Making sure that responses as well are coming from those email accounts will be important. So if they forward through to your personal Gmail account and you're responding from your personal Gmail account, then we lose that chain. So I think what we'll do here is try to establish, like Zach said, sort of set, we won't give them your names because the expectation will be that whenever, you know, your term is up, your seat is turned over, a new person would come in and take that same email address and have access to the history, the context of prior discussions and stuff like that. And hopefully that helps keep us all a little bit straight too on the, you know, this is all stuff that could be put in the front page of the newspaper by the whim of a FOIA request anyway. So we need to keep that sort of level of professionalism in the discourse. Not that you guys have ever had a problem with that, but just, you know, I think in the future for the new person coming in, seeing that history and knowing that everything that they write is going to be seen by the next person sort of helps establish that right off the bat.
Yep.
Okay, great.
That's fine.
Cool. So I'll leave that to town staff to go get those things up and running.
Yes, I'll send you guys an email in the next week or so as we work on getting all of that up and running on how to log into them through the town website and what your new email addresses will be.
So I assume that then allows us to, I mean, you may be getting into this at some point, but then have almost a server, like a Google Drive.
That would be the wonderful thing that we'd kind of look for in the future. In the current fiscal year, we are stuck with the services that we are currently subscribed to. So it will not have that capacity at the moment.
Okay.
But Zach can tell you more about it. That has been part of the conversation that he had at the council level. And I think that's something we'll look into at the, as we put together the budget for the next fiscal year.
Okay.
Yeah, I brought up this time around the other process piece was just about conducting the inventory. And then working on paper documents and writing notes and passing it off and annotating and now taking pictures is just because it's just cumbersome, and there are more efficient ways to do it. And there are servers that do it. The server that we've been using, I think Thomas said since 2005, which is practically the 90s. And there's just other stuff that works better from Google to Microsoft that I think could increase our efficiency, but also the efficiency of the Planning Commission too. I mean, all the committees would benefit from having a server that we're all able to tap in that way. So thank you all. So I'll leave the rest of that to town staff, and then we'll all be blue hosting together. Okay. All right, our inventory. Let's see. How do we want to do this? I guess what I want to do, it looks like we've got a PDF of our notes to look through. What I want to do is look primarily at the poor rated properties. I have a couple other like related items, like street numbers. We discovered on our walk that street numbers were not always visible or
existed.
Yeah, so that's not like an ARB thing. That's not part of our evaluation, but that's something to communicate to homeowners for sure. That they need.
Real quick on that, and I've mentioned this to Barbara, and I don't know if I've ever mentioned it to you, Thomas. One time when we were down in the Outer Banks in the town of Duck, we were taking our son by the fire station, and actually the Duck fire station produces number plates, and I'm not sure what the particular design is, but for any homeowner in the town of Duck, they can go by the fire station and they will produce them their home numbers to put on their house or their mailbox or something like that, in particular, so that the emergency services have all of those.
Yeah, I haven't heard of that, but I've had conversations with Jeff in the past about the
town could potentially undertake.
No, Albemarle Fire Rescue does that for the same reason, that the fire truck needs to be able to get to the right house reliably. The ones that Albemarle makes are highway green reflective. They're the highest possible visibility. Maybe not ideal. But I do like the idea of consistent numbering that everyone can find.
Yeah, I would like to just communicate that to homeowners though, as a result of the inventory. I don't know if we wouldn't send like a poor rating, but maybe just a letter that says, hello from the ARB. Where do you live? We don't know. And neither does emergency services.
Yeah.
That could be something maybe that we look at if we have a surplus of funds at the end of a year, you know, just spending $100 and buying a box of, you know, 10 each of 10 digits and keeping it down at the police station and letting people know that they can call, you know, our police if they need to request home numbers. Just tell them what your 3 digits are and they'll pull them out of the box and, you know, you can come and pick them up.
But is that something that we as an ARB should communicate to property owners, or is that a different communication that should come from the town to these people?
The public safety argument for it is.
Yeah, I think that's got a greater public safety argument than an ARB one, and we'd want to extend that outside of the historic overlay district as well.
Okay.
So I think that's a good idea, and one that, maybe we bring up at a council level or a public safety committee level and let Jeff and or council mull over.
Eddie Payne knows about that because he did it when he was with the rescue squad.
Okay, well, then
you could
notes
take
here.
it and somehow incorporate it into like the town walking map if you wanted to and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So from our notes, at least from the walk that Aaron and I did, there are specific properties listed that don't have numbers. Okay. So you can use that. You can use that as a start to make a list somewhere of properties that we know need them.
A lot of the commercial buildings down on Main don't have them. Even the police department doesn't have one. So, I mean, you know, you'd think you could start at least with the commercial buildings because, I don't know, the aesthetics may not be quite as significant to the owners of those buildings as they are to the owners of the houses. I don't know, but it is an issue, and it certainly makes the inventory a lot more cumbersome.
Yeah. And the other thing that we'll need is just GIS confirmation, particularly on Page Street. So before you go and enter the official Excel sheet, just make sure you've confirmed that all of these properties are in fact in the historic district. And if we missed any, and if there are any that are excluded, I'd be happy to do a walk with somebody just to go see the one that we may have missed. I think we got them all. I think if anything, we did both in Big H. So keep that in mind as you enter stuff into the Excel sheet.
Okay.
Okay. Is there any way to see the pictures that we took?
I can share this photo file.
Okay. We'll just sort of take them there.
I think you pretty much just did photos of the things that were suspect, right? So that would guide the fair and poor conversation.
Well, I think for us, we just did the ones that were rated, we considered poor.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what we did too.
Okay,
great. We did. Wow. Are there any properties that were borderline that people want to discuss?
You know, I don't have the notes in front of me, so
I know.
I don't think. Tyler, can you recall whether there was anything that we were on the fence about? Oh, no pun intended.
I was just going to say, yeah, some of the fences that have been
Church
put up.
fences. Don't be looking at me.
Okay. So we'll just go through, let's do a review of the, I will say there were a couple properties that improved on our walk, which was encouraging to see, and some completed COAs. So that was nice. But I think we should do a review of the, go ahead, Bob.
Can I just say, and I'm very sorry, I have to go in about 15 minutes. So I don't know how long you're going to be, but I have another call I have to make.
Okay.
I thought this was going to be a short meeting.
These things do.
Okay.
Yep.
Sorry.
All right. So let's walk through these poor rated properties. And I'm going to try to go down the list here just in the PDF. And if you guys can pull up as an image.
This is that lot. There's no change to it.
Yeah,
Right.
this is hardware. Hopefully they're in the same order because you took them in the order that you walked.
Yes.
All
right. The dollhouse is the first one that I come to in the PDF file. Does anyone want to look at a picture? Or do we feel
Have
like
all the notes been transcribed? Like if Barbara doesn't have the notes, then it's going to be hard for us to reference that. So I don't think we can effectively go through this without our notes.
Well,
so I gave my notes to Zach. Zach, they got put into the file, correct? And I think the easiest way for us to probably address this, Tyler, honestly, is that in the vast majority of the properties, there was minimal to no change.
Yeah.
On all of our pours, there was literally just a rehash of the same thing.
Right.
You know, an aside is that the laundromat did improve and its rating went up. They corrected some of the things that were on the last inventory. But for the most part, you know, what we're looking at are, again, the same issues with the house that's collapsing in on itself up across from the CenturyLink building. And I think we may have taken, as you come down those pictures, you're not, you know, that we're looking at. So as you come down to the third house, no, the one before this, no. Going backwards, actually. So in this row of houses there along East Main, well, I don't know.
I don't know if we got it.
The third one down from where you started.
I know which one you mean.
Nope. Go back with the awning, that one. Okay. Yes. I believe, Tyler, do you remember? This one had not been poor before and we took it to poor.
Yeah. And Thomas, have you been able to upload this stuff into the file, like all of the writing, or no?
Yes, that got sent out. You guys have a PDF copy in the email that Matt sent out with the agenda and things for the meeting tonight.
Yeah,
that's the windmill that I couldn't open.
Yeah, that attachment, whatever format that attachment is, it doesn't work. Okay.
The 2020 ARB condition survey that you guys got in PDF?
It was on Windmail, and I can't open that.
It was on Windmail for you.
Windmail is what it's called.
Yeah, it was some weird attachment. It was like...
Okay, let me see.
I don't know what's going on with that.
Yeah, that's strange. Let me try resending that right now. It's definitely a PDF.
Yeah, we haven't had time to type this all up, but it's a scan of the walk sheets.
Yeah, it's a windmail.dat attachment, and I can't open it.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Right. Neither could I. And unfortunately, it just came in today. I mean, I only just gave Zach, I don't know, a week just before you did yours. I gave you my list of notes, and then you guys did it on the 3rd, and so that's where we are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe we
I do have the question about the Tutwiler building, the garage, which is next, yes, that, which is next to the 2-story gold tan house, that we were both confused in terms of whether or not they shouldn't be 2 different addresses. They are 2 different properties. And when the spreadsheet came out, there was only one number, one address listed for what I assumed to be the 2 properties merged together. Why we haven't caught that before, I don't know, and I didn't know whether they were both owned by the same person, but Zach says they are. So This building is definitely in poor condition, but the one next to it, which shares the same address number, is not in poor condition.
All right. Those are owned by different people.
Oh, I thought you said they were both owned by your neighbor.
No, my neighbor owns his home and just the garage.
The white building. Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Do they have two different addresses? It's just that the garage doesn't have it marked?
One has an address. I think the one that is a residence has an address. And this one doesn't. Right. But this is referred to as the Tutwiler building. So it's confusing. And like I said, we've done this. This is our third year doing this property, but we've never caught that before, or there were different numbers for them before or something. I couldn't tell from last year's inventory. I looked at last year's inventory and I didn't see.
It might have been that I was merging last year's and the years before and trying to catch mistakes, and I may have created a few instead. So that might have been my fault.
Well, I guess my bottom line point is that the things that were poor before were poor again this year. And we had the addition of the one that's across the street with the awning. And then there was the confusion about these two separate buildings, but this one for sure is still poor as it had been. The one next to it, the gold 2-story, what I think is a duplex, is not poor.
Right. Okay, I understand.
Yep. I think Aaron and I can say the same from our walk. There were no, and looking over the notes here as well, that all the properties on our walk that were rated poor are still as such. Some of which, you know, and some of which no progress made. Go back to that last picture though. There we go. Thank you. So I forget what the rating of this building is, but this is a Meeks property, and it would be really nice if we could ask him to move that stuff inside.
Well, do you remember when we had the conversation with Lisa, the Lisa person who owns the building next door?
Mm-hmm.
And she made the comment that all of this stuff was on the front porch. And I think we all sort of said at that point, what if anything, can we do about this?
Mm-hmm.
And I got the impression that there was literally nothing we could do about this. Am I still right in understanding that, Matt, from a town standpoint?
Yes, there's not a code violation happening there. It's within the realm of respect for neighbors.
Yeah, and that's why I guess I'm emphasizing ask.
Yeah.
Well, it could make for an interesting exchange.
Yeah, I think you have to be careful about what the government asks.
I guess you're right. Okay. It's just a real drag. It could look nicer, in other words, in a historic district to have 2 refrigerators, construction equipment, furniture on a porch. Not ideal.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate that there isn't some means of.
I think individual approaches can be useful in this. It's just difficult. Matt and I, even as individuals, still represent a certain enforcement authority on code issue and stuff like that is delicate. But individual approach, outside of that might be more fruitful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would suspect that Lisa asked, and I would suspect she got this as a response.
Oh.
I mean, just knowing Lisa, the little that I do, and if she approached the town about it, then I suspect she probably took the first initiative just to ask. I don't know. I'm assuming,
Okay.
Yeah, no, in that exchange, it was all about, you know, the conversation back and forth about her roof replacement and saying that we should, at that point, she was saying we should be happy that landlords were wanting to improve buildings. And if we were going to be looking at that with such scrutiny, we should be looking at the property next door to her. That was the way it was raised. And, we didn't disagree. And I don't think she realized he was actually at that meeting. And, so then we had conversation that followed that said, yeah, what about this? And it was basically, well, there's nothing we can do. And so he's aware for sure about the dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
He is aware.
Yeah. Okay. And so for February, it'd be good to see this inventory finalized in the Excel sheet with the notes updated and the pictures inserted or attached. Okay. In the inventory, could you also include the criteria? Because there are nice paragraphs in the old copy that just explain what each category, how we decide each category. And that's just really helpful to have for reference, not only for doing the walk, but also if people have questions about how things are rated.
Right.
So are there any other comments that people want to make about properties in the inventory? Because I have some comments I want to make about enforcement, but I don't want to cut our discussion of the properties themselves short if we want to look at more.
I would say the only thing I would want to add to what you said was some properties went from fair to poor simply just because of further neglect. So because time went on and things got worse.
And a good example of that is the home on Harrison Street. It's I don't know if it's a duplex or what, but they've had a broken window. There was a temporary solution for 4 years or something like that. I know since I've been in Scottsville. And so a temporary solution is meant to be fixed. So we did rate that one. We downgraded that one to poor. No, that one is already.
Is that it? Is that the one?
It's the one next to Clayton.
Yeah.
Oh, the duplex, the
white one with a sort of wavy asbestos shingle siding right across the street from Old Hall.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the one, Matt.
Yeah, so the small window there towards the back. So that's a temporary solution that's been there for 3 or 4 years. So we downgraded that to poor because we want the property owners to fix it because it's a broken window ultimately that needs a new window.
Got it. And the total number of these issues is about 20, I think. There's 30 slides in here, but some of them are multiples. I think I counted 19 buildings that we're looking at. So it's a fair number, but some of them are easier fixes than others.
Yeah. Okay. And that brings me to the enforcement side of this, which I raised with council at our last work session. I was going to share the official numbers sort of after this meeting, but I let them know that we have a number of properties whose owners have not made any movement from a poor condition. And in fact, this number has gotten larger. I mean, East Main Street alone, I think, has had 3 properties in the last 2 years become poor, or 4 actually. And that's a problem. We also have properties on Valley Street that have become poor, most notably the Stinson House, which is now on the market. That was not poor 3 years ago.
Right.
So, and now we're up to 19 poor rated properties in the historic district, which means they're unsealed or there's structural issues. And so I raised it at the level of council for 2 reasons. One, we're having trouble with enforcement because we're not getting any traction. And 2, this is becoming, I think, an economic development issue. This is going to become something larger than just, is your window fixed? We're looking at potentially losing some buildings if things are not done to save them. And just what poor and neglected properties due to values overall or the attractiveness of the town or trying to get investment here in the first place. So I primed the pumps for council to discuss that at our next meeting. On the enforcement issue, I raised with them that we do have enforcement power. You know, we all know that we can fine people for every day that they're in violation of not, you know, following through on improvements. We know that the mayor can go into a property and do the work, Ron Smith himself, with a tool belt, and then charge and then put a lien on the property for the work, right? The town can charge for the work, put a lien on the property, and it gets done. I also reminded council that we have never done that. We have never really fined anyone, and we have never gone in to do the work because council is not interested in being the heavy when it comes to enforcing these ordinances, which ultimately is the people who are responsible for doing it. So I didn't get anyone standing up and saying, yeah, let's fine them. But what I did hear, which I think was helpful, and I think we should add in our letters this year, is being more proactive about providing guidance to homeowners about help they can get to fix their properties. And I know Laura Malusi brought up AHIP. What does AHIP stand for? It's a county thing, isn't it?
Albemarle Housing Improvement Program, for repairs for folks living, low-income people living in dilapidated homes.
Yeah, so I think what would be wise, along with our letters this year that say your property is rated poor and we need a plan for improving it, would also be to pass along resources that people can use to help. And I don't think we should be passing along contractor recommendations because we all agree that that's something we can't do and shouldn't do. But I think if there are resources like AHIP or monies for people with homes on the historic registry, which are in a slightly different echelon, I think we should include all of those so that people know that there are things out there that they can avail themselves of and that we can become familiar with. I'd like to know more about what these resources are so that when we talk to property owners, we can direct them towards these things. I don't know if they're all going to be able to use them, but I think it would be good for us to at least offer that as part of this process.
So that brings up something that I'm kind of curious about. Like the owner of the Stinson house would not, just knowing who they are, they would not qualify for AHIP.
Mm-hmm.
So I almost think that there needs to be that information about, you know, how they can get financial support. But I also think there needs to be a tracking of, you know, in 2021, they received a poor rating. 6 months later, they 3 months later, they contacted AHIP. Now they're making moves, you know, with AHIP. Or they haven't made any moves for 6 months. So we fine them or, you know, bill them. I think that there needs to be a tracking on the calendar because it like we can't say, well, you can afford it, but you can't. So you get more time and, you know, you get less time. Mm-hmm. But we can give a schedule and say, these are your resources, you know, and then they can respond to that.
I think that's a great point about the schedule, Aaron. And we already have some of those mechanisms built into the COA, things to sort of try to check in if people are participating in the process with us. And in theory, the letters trigger mechanisms like that as well. If I were, I think, going to identify the difference between some of the residential properties we're talking about and something like the Stinson house that you're talking about, I think it would be that the Stinson house may not be, well, as a commercial property would have different resources available to it, presumably, than a private property that's just, you know, used as a private residence. And so hopefully there's, you know, for a commercial property like that, maybe additional economic development tools or just different resources. If it's going to be, you know, renovated for multi-unit housing versus an individual house, there would be different, you know, tax credits and resources available for that sort of thing.
And along those lines, sorry to interrupt, but
no.
As you were talking, it made me think like APIT probably has a projected schedule that we could get information about. So they might say, yes, we can, you know, respond to a property owner in 2 months. And then the work, depending on the work, it will be done between 4 and 6 months. And we have that information and then can base our schedule off of that information. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
I just think there needs to be some sort of, I mean, you know, and looking at the Stinson house, we saw it last year and it's getting worse this year. And it's really concerning because a lot of it is foundational, you know, foundational issues and structural issues and obviously they're not going to do something about it. And so at some point, I think we need to enforce, you know, our power in saying, you know, by this point, if you don't do something by this date, you'll be fined. If you don't do something by this date, we'll have a contractor or Ron do the work and then, you know, put a lien.
And I think at that point, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we set a timeline, we as a board, we like make a motion that something should be done and then council would have to prove it to be done. Like if we wanted to do something at the Stinson house, would we say we're going to do it and then council would have to approve it?
That's right. They're not unilateral actions on my part, but you're asking council to direct staff to do the thing so that they have that control over whether they want to pull those triggers.
And then the lien is just a sort of very slow trickle of revenue that would replace the initial cost of what you're doing. So there would be a supplemental appropriation at the council level to allow spending the money to do the work.
Yeah.
And then we don't have a real estate tax in place, but we might be able to work with the county on theirs or something. That the options for the lien would be fairly limited. And I think that's been one of the problems we've run into in the past as well.
And that's, Zach, that's important for your representing this committee back to council for budget, that whether you're going to court with legal costs or doing repair work, which we don't recoup over a period of time, there has to be a budget line for ARB enforcement. And currently there's not. And that sets up, I think, a pretty strong warning to property owners that we are prepared to do this. We have money in the budget to do it, and we can follow through. And that's currently not the case.
Don't we actually have a letter out now that's like could be accruing fines?
Yes. We have previously said, fix this problem.
No, I think there's like a specific
or you will be violating our zoning ordinance. Yes.
I feel like there's a specific property though that you've sent it to that maybe it just fell off our agenda or something like that over the past few months. But I feel like there's one outstanding, or there's a number of them.
I believe.
Yes, the last thing that happened there was serving that notice, and it didn't happen. We brought it to town council's attention. The mayor intervened with the property owner and spoke to them, and then no further work got done. And we were hoping the mayor's intervention would work there.
Well, and that is the owner of now the 4 properties, if I'm not wrong, all of which are in a cluster there. That trust or those owners own 4 properties there on East Main that are now rated poor.
Yes.
Actually, the casket shed qualifies as on Jackson Street. But the casket shed, the dollhouse, the one with the awning that we just took to poor, and the one next to it, the one next to it, Tyler, with the incomplete stone at the foundation. Did we? I'm trying to remember whether that went to poor, or I have to look at the pictures again. But I know those 4 properties are owned by the same, have the ownership of all 4 properties.
It's enough of a cluster that it seems to have value as a package, but the terms like concentrated blight are appropriate.
And with the mixed properties.
Same.
Yeah.
Exactly. Same owner, same owner in question of multiple properties rated in fair to poor condition. So, I mean, I don't see the other one in that cluster of 4. We must not have taken the one with the stone foundation.
I know what you mean, though.
I don't see it. I thought we had all 4 of them. Not that we were looking to, but they just, as many of the ones that you looked at this year, have continued to deteriorate. So I misspoke. I think it's only 3, but I'd have to look at the PDF, and I don't.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I mean that's a. I mean, it's. I mean, it's right. You got 2 property owners who are persistently, in violation
for more than
quality.
20% of the poorly rated properties.
Right.
Probably closer to 50%.
Yeah.
And, then there's that other wonderful building that houses the realtor there on Valley that is quite old. I mean, it predates a lot of the buildings along there. And I can't remember the number, but it's where the Ward Realty or Old Dominion, whatever it is, that building, it's just really sad because from the standpoint of the town and how it presents, I think that one is certainly another one that's really critical. And I don't understand why there, would be resistance. And I was surprised that they didn't apply for the facade enhancement program, because they would have been a perfect candidate. And it's just that important a building in terms of its historic character.
Yeah.
So maybe, when we were talking to, is it Jim Bowling, the attorney before?
Yeah.
And he said, pick your battles and pick a few that, are kind of your higher priorities. I do feel like owners that have multiple buildings that fall into this category would seem to be logical, folks to start with. If we can't take it all on at once, at least from the, I don't know, from the standpoint of the council, if the argument were made that we have multiple properties owned by individuals where we're not seeing any improvement, and where it's been, made over 3 years at least, in some cases longer.
Yeah.
What about not approving new COAs for an owner that has poor rated properties if COA is not part of fixing the poorly rated stuff?
I think
that's interesting.
I think that's a really good idea.
I think that's an interesting thought.
I think we might need to run that past our attorney before we try to set that as precedent.
I know we can't appear to be punitive, but right now, again, it's this sustained inaction.
I think the idea of focusing on individuals as a way to sort of concentrate that aid and try to get the most bang for your buck makes a lot of sense. What you're saying there, Barbara, of choosing people who are responsible for multiple properties, it narrows the amount of work we have to do. And if we can get them help, hopefully it's help fixing multiple properties, and we'll cover a lot of our problems at once.
But we've been 2 years with said individuals and nothing changed.
Yep.
So
well, and it comes down to money is being spent on something new when it could be being spent on improving. something an issue that exists.
Yeah, and that's what jogged my mind about that thought that I just had. About, sorry, you have poorly rated properties, no COAs for you.
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense. Thomas is right that we should ask Jim about that. My hunch is that since we don't have an ordinance that includes that as a specific penalty, that we won't be able to do that. But I think we should ask Jim anyway, because Jim likes a puzzle.
Yeah.
That might not be much of a puzzle, but I think we should ask him anyway.
Well, and I think that the case is certainly strengthened by the number of years, and that's what we'd also want to present is, for how many years have these individual properties been deemed poor with absolutely a refusal to either show up or make any improvements on the said properties. And I think that, that as much as anything, I mean, we've got other properties that are rated poor, but where some amount of work continues to be done, right? I mean, we do have those among the many. But these consistent refusals to do anything, to show up, to do anything, would seem to me to qualify for. And I am grateful that that the mayor spoke to the owner. I have spoken to the owner individually upon running into him at the post office. The response was, "Where's the money? Do you want to buy it?"
Mm-hmm.
I said, "No, I'm not in the business of buying any more property, but I am in the business of wanting the property in the town that's important." And that's what I impressed upon him. I said, in question is the dollhouse, which is just, it's a shame. It's sad. It's very, very old, and it's very important. And it could be, a great contributor to how the town looks on that end. And right now it's devolving, and you throw in the the train depot, and you throw in the Tutwiler building, and you throw in everything that's collapsing on itself, and the GoCo station. And honestly, I do feel like, the East Main entry into town, this is where people from Richmond come into town. It's not the path to Charlottesville. And it is the oldest area of the town. And it's just there's no movement. We're hoping that the bus depot does something. And we understand the COVID impact. But again, now that has come up. How many years? 2 or 3? So we're seeing, I'm fearful that we're just seeing a real neglect taking place, and a failure to recognize the importance of that area.
I think that's very well said. Yeah. And again, I think, and this is why I think it's now becoming a council issue, because as you mentioned, it's becoming an economic development one. And I will present, I think what I will present at our next work session, which will be not until next month. But I think addressing the fact that we're dealing with two property owners who own not maybe a majority, but a sizable portion of these properties rated poor, where we've seen persistent neglect. Some high profile cases like the Stinson House, the old Dominion building, and just the issue along East Main. And you're right, I mean, it's the bus depots added to that too, as a result of project that's sort of like hard to get started, apparently. I think council would be right to take this seriously. And I think presenting that, I think this is also an interesting angle. Getting a line item in the budget might actually be the best first step for us as a board, to say we're committing money as a town to empower the ARB to make some decisions about properties that we want to see fixed.
and put the question to Bowling about whether or not we'd have any standing on saying we will not act on a future COA with anyone who still has properties in the poor status. See whether or not we have any legal standing to do that, because I mean, I think that it's a legitimate thought, but it's one of those things that could be kind of thorny, especially if it's not already written into any of the language on enforcement.
Sure, and I think he'll be happy to brainstorm those options with us.
Okay. All right, so we will get the letters out. I do think, though, in terms of like what we can do now, do we feel comfortable about sharing with these letters sort of a menu of resources that people might be able to avail themselves of, that are associated with government in some capacity?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think so.
I could work on putting together for you guys next month a brief presentation of, you know, whatever kinds of resources like that we can scrape together. And then that way you guys will have at least a sort of passing familiarity with it and can give us a brief okay that those look all right to include as that list. And then if next month we're finalizing the poor condition properties as well, then that stuff can all be packaged together to go out at one time.
Yep, that sounds good to me. And
Okay.
so then, so then also in anticipation of next meeting, we just anticipate seeing a finalized inventory typed up with pictures included for us to look at.
Yep.
Tyler just dropped.
Works.
Okay. Let's see here. Anything else about the inventory? Okay. Information items, we're going to get our fence ordinance on the docket for the February council meeting. So council will be voting on that. They are supportive of the move, so I don't see any opposition there, but we will have the public hearing and vote on it officially in February. I think that was it in terms of information items, except for I will add that it's nice to see a couple COAs completed, including it looks like Larry Barnett finally did his roof.
Yes.
He did.
And that looks good. So that's cool.
Just in time for me to move out of that building.
Right. Too bad. So anyway, but that's it. That's all I've got, unless anyone has anything else for us tonight.
It's really nice when people come forward with complete COAs, and I'll just add that I'm pleased at the way the Methodist Church fence was resolved, because there were indicators at the outset that it might not be handled the way that it was. Yeah. And so I applaud the committee, the board, and Matt and Thomas for, making this happen sort of seamlessly at the end. I just didn't have high hopes for that at the outset, and I think it came together pretty well. Are you guys feeling that way? I'm just curious.
Yes, absolutely. I would second that. I think I hope that you all don't get too discouraged with property owners that you get the same message from over and over. At least they're consistent. I think it's wonderful to see things like the Methodist Church and Miss Caltabiano's case that you brought up earlier. You guys have had several examples of these situations that could go a lot of different ways, and there's very productive discussion and a very satisfying resolution for everybody. And I think that speaks volumes to the work that you all are doing.
Absolutely, and between meetings or in the comings and goings in this building, the team at the Methodist Church has thanked you for working through this process together, and that was one. I wasn't sure it was going to turn out that way, and it does feel good to get that done.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm pleased. I think we got a good result out of that. I'm pleased with how that shaped up. Yeah. All right, buddy. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you all so much again for your conscientiousness. I really so much appreciate you all being here. So enjoy the rest of your evening. And
do we need to move to?
Oh, right. Yes. I was just ending that like any other meeting I'm in. Sorry.
Do your homework.
I move to adjourn.
I second that.
All in favor?
Bye.
Thank you all.
Good night, all.
See you all around. Be good and safe out there.
Thank you all very much. Take care.